USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at USAA.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
If you went on a road trip and you didn't stop for a Big Mac or drop a crispy fry between the car seats or use your McDonald's bag as a placemat, then that wasn't a road trip. It was just a really long drive. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's.
On this episode of the 80s Flick Flashback, we're diving into a film that followed a surprising stumble for one of the biggest action stars of the decade. In 1987, Sylvester Stallone seemed invincible. After dominating the box office in 85 with the second and third highest grossing films of the year, and another blockbuster in 86 with Cobra, his grip on Hollywood's action throne appeared unshakable. Yet, his arm wrestling Cannon Films classic Over the Top shockingly bombed. So for his next movie, Stallone turned to one of his most iconic characters, Rambo. This brings us to this 80s flick sequel, often seen as the most outlandish entry in the franchise. Its story, Rambo heading to Afghanistan to aid the Mujahideen against the Soviets, has certainly aged, especially post 9/11. So get ready to leave the monastery, grab your explosive tipped arrows, and jump in the chopper as Chris Adams, JB Huffman, and I dissect 1988's Rambo 3 on this episode of the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. Well, welcome in, everybody. I'm Tim Williams. I'm your host of the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. I'm so excited to have two of my favorite co-hosts joining me for what is sure to be an explosive episode. First up, when I need a one-man army of cinematic insight, he's the first man I call. It's the always ready for action, JB Huffman. How you doing, JB?
I'm doing great, man. Ready to talk about one of my favorite actors' movies.
Yeah, you got it right. You got it right. And joining him tonight is a man who brings more firepower of film knowledge than a Soviet Hind helicopter. It's the unstoppable Chris Adams. How you doing, Chris?
I'm well. I don't know how to follow that. That's a really big description to live up to there.
Hey, if it wasn't...
I feel like a tourist here.
I caught that reference.
I was hoping you would.
Cool. Well, before we jump into the episode, I want to give a shout out to a new podcast review that we've gotten recently. Got a 5-star review from Kristen Cook, and she said best podcast ever, which I have to agree, and I am biased. She said, I would much rather watch 80s movies than the newer movies that are out today. The 80s Flick Flashback features some of my favorite movies. I love listening to their opinions of the movies and memories they have. A few of my favorites are Mr. Mom, Space Camp, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, License to Drive. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Kristen. Appreciate those kind words. Thank you so much for reaching out to us. She actually reached out to me on social media, and I was like, hey, if you write us a review, that'd be really cool. And she did. So I appreciate her taking that time to do that. So if you want to leave us a review, you can do that over at Apple Podcast or your favorite podcast catcher if they let you write reviews, but it helps when it's on Apple. Well, let's jump into this episode. We're in our Summer of Sequels 2 series, so we're covering part 3 sequels from the 80s. So if you've missed the first 2 we've done, we started off the series with Superman 3. We had a little bonus episode of Friday the 13th, which is not a part 3, but we had a Friday the 13th. And then our last episode, JB and I covered Karate Kid part 3. So to continue in the series of sequels that show why trilogies are not always a great idea, it's Rambo 3. So we've covered First Blood, which was fantastic. We covered Rambo First Blood Part 2, which was fun for what it was, becoming a straight-up action flick instead of more of a war drama that First Blood was. And then because it made sense to go from First Blood to Rambo First Blood Part 2 to then make your sequel just Rambo 3. And I am the person that if I see First Blood listed as Rambo First Blood, I reject that. I do not accept that title. That was not the title as it was released. Just like Star Wars A New Hope will never be episode 4. It will always be A New Hope. But anyway.
Star Wars. Just Star Wars.
Just Star Wars. That's what, it wasn't even A New Hope. It was just Star Wars. So, all right, well, let's jump into Rambo 3. So, Chris, when did you see Rambo 3 for the very first time?
I went to the movies and watched it.
Oh, yeah.
When it came to theaters. I was looking forward to it because I really liked Part 2. And I was hoping for something, as big or bigger. Now, I did like Part 3. I'm not going to say that I didn't. I did like it, but 2 is my absolute favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely at the theaters when it came out.
Very cool. What about you, JB?
Like many 80s movies, it was one that I don't remember not watching. And like most 80s movies, I definitely did not watch it in theaters because I was 2. But
that would probably be a little problematic if you saw it in the theater at age 2.
Just a little bit.
Would have been more impressive though is if you saw it and remembered it at age 2.
Yes.
Hey, I'm going to defend myself. I've been wanting to cover a movie that I've actually seen in theaters, but we've been putting it off for the last 3 years.
We're
Tim
getting
knows what
there.
I'm talking about.
This is the year, man. This is the year.
Tim knows what I'm talking about. It's
I
all
do.
good.
I know exactly. Christmas 2025. We're going to finally do it.
If it's Christmas, I already know what it is if it's Christmas. Because
Prancer.
I finally got to do it last year, I think it was, or the year before.
Yeah. Hey, if
You heard it here first. You heard it here first,
There you
YouTube.
go.
It's Prancer, guys.
That's
it's coming.
it.
It's coming.
We've been putting it off for way too long. Look, that was me and Jerry D on Totally Rad Christmas. We scheduled to do Cobra. I promise you, like 5 or 6 times, and every time we tried to do it, something happened. We had to reschedule. We finally did it, but it was like I watched it 3 times to record, and we kept pushing it off. So I said I've seen Cobra way more than I wanted to. But anyway, sidebar. So Rambo 3, I have a vague memory that maybe I saw this in the theater, but I did not see it like when it first came out. I think I waited until it was at the Dollar Theater before I saw it, or I may even waited until it was on VHS before I watched it. It was not one that I remember. I don't have like a fond memory of seeing it in the theater. I remember seeing it. I remember seeing Rambo First Blood Part 2 in the theater, but this one I did not. So how long has it been since you rewatched it before rewatching it for the podcast, JB?
I looked back. It was September of last year because I had been putting off rewatching these for a while, and when Last Blood came out in 2019, I was like, man, I need to rewatch these. And then I never got around to it. And I don't know why, I couldn't catch it in theater at that time. And so then finally last year, I was like, I just need to go back and watch them all and then watch Last Blood. And so I did.
Yeah.
I cranked through them, man. And it was just, it was a fun experience. I had forgotten about 4. I had forgotten it was because I'd only seen that like once.
Yeah.
The other ones I've seen so many times. So.
Yeah. What about you, Chris?
Earlier this year, actually, I was looking for something to watch, and I was going through that Roku app, the Roku channel.
Oh, yeah.
And they had a marathon going all day and into the night, repeating, starting with First Blood, then Part 2, then 3, then 4, and then it started back over at 1. And it just kept repeating all night. So I actually saw it one whole time and part of another time that same day.
Little double dip there. Yeah. Yeah. Same with JB when Rambo Last Blood came out. Well, I think it had been out for a while because I think once it finally went to like video, I want to say like back when it was Vudu, now it's Fandango at home, but when it was Vudu, you got they had like a deal for like all the Rambo movies. So First Blood all the way to the director's cut of Last Blood. And so I was like, I'm just going to go ahead and get it so I can have all of them. Cause I wanted the first 2 anyway. And so I did the same thing. I started with First Blood, then watched Rambo Part 2. And I remember watching this, we had bought a grill cause it was right around summertime. We had bought a new grill. And so I was putting the grill together in our little sunroom, and I had it on. So I was kind of like watching it, but kind of like half watching it. So watching it this time, I was paying a lot more attention to what was going on. So, but yeah, that had to been like 2019. I think it was before 2020. So before COVID. So it's weird how our lives have that distinction. Like, is before COVID or after COVID or in the middle of COVID, which is like the year that we forget. But anyway. All right, well, let's jump into story origin and pre-production. So got a little bit here, not a whole lot, but we'll take it as it comes. According to the December 1990 issue of Spy magazine, screenwriters and novelists Richard Dobbins and Evan Slawson wrote the original story treatment for the third film titled Rambo: Holy War. Several other writers did their own versions before Sylvester Stallone and Sheldon Lettich wrote the final script. David Morrell, who wrote the original book, First Blood, said how when he was writing his novelization of the film, every week he would get a new script for the film, and each one would have been very different from the last. Morrell also wrote a version of the script for Rambo 3 in which Rambo and Trautman's wife, who just like him is also a military expert, go to South America to save Trautman from some dictator and his army, but that script was rejected. The road to Rambo 3 was a tough one. Initially, Highlander's Russell Mulcahy was set to direct. He was fired after 2 weeks of filming in Israel when his choices for vicious-looking Russian troops seemed, in Stallone's words, to be 24 blonde, blue-eyed pretty boys that resembled red rejects from a surfing contest, end quote. The film would also go through 3 cinematographers. Instead, Peter McDonald, the second unit director of Rambo First Blood Part 2, was hired, which meant the movie's action would be impeccable. We'll never know what the original version of Rambo 3 was, but if it was over-the-top action and non-stop explosions they wanted, McDonald was the right guy for the job. McDonald never hit the big time as a director with just 3 more feature films after this one. He directed 1992's Mo Money with Damon Wayans, or The Never-Ending Story Part 3, and 1998's Legionnaire with Jean-Claude Van Damme. However, the Hollywood veteran would continue to make his hay as a second unit director, most recently on 14's Guardians of the Galaxy. So good to know he's still doing some work, but didn't really become the director he wanted to be. So that's storage and pre-production. Anything you guys found you wanted to add, or is there anything interesting in there you wanted to talk about?
Nothing for me.
I think it's interesting that Peter McDonald has directed like so many like third episodes of a trilogy, or Never-Ending Story 3, and then of course Indiana Jones, the one he did is like not even in that trilogy, so it's
right.
like distant from any of them, but it's just funny. But not
yeah this is one that when I was watching it, I was trying to remember if this is one of those movies like, Stallone will like have a director, quote unquote, a director on set, but like he's actually the one directing it. And I was wondering if this was one of those, which is probably pretty true. With him being a second unit director before, I mean, he's directed but not been like the primary director, so he was probably taking a lot of cues from Stallone for sure.
At this point, man, Stallone is running the show.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's been very public about his 80s, early 90s persona being, his ego was way too high. So
he has several movies he took over, didn't he? It wasn't just Rambo. I mean,
oh yeah.
Wasn't Cobra one of them as well?
Cobra was definitely one that he like pretty much directed himself. So, which is why I guess Rambo 4, which is just titled Rambo, he directed that one. And I think did he direct the last one? Last Blood? I know he wrote the story for it.
I think he did. Did he take over Tango and Cash too?
Probably. There's a
lot. I think we
covered that. Yeah. I think
Adrian Grunberg did the Last Blood.
Okay. All right. Yeah. A director that took instruction from.
He did 4 though.
Okay. He did do 4.
He did Rambo.
Yeah. The sequel without a number
Why did Rambo 3 come before Rambo? Right. I don't understand that, but okay.
Hey, it goes from Rocky to Rocky V to then John Rambo. So I mean not John Rocky was a Rocky Balboa, Rocky V. Yeah, sorry. Wrong then series. So you had the Rocky movies, you had Rocky 1, 2, Balboa.
Uh-huh.
So, sure, that makes sense. It was the 80s, man. Well, that wasn't even the 80s. Anyway, doesn't matter. Sylvester Stallone. All right, let's get into casting. Talk about Sylvester Stallone. I literally have 3 people to talk about for the cast because it's pretty small. And all 3 of these are people that we've talked about in previous episodes. So this is going to go by really quick. So, of course, Sylvester Stallone is John J. Rambo. Stallone decided it was time to go big or go home when he came to Rambo 3, since he'd never gone big before that point, and demanded a whole jet as payment. He got it too, which shows serious faith on the part of the producers, who ponied up $12 million for Stallone to have his own Gulfstream jet to put on the headband for the 3rd time. So
Wow.
you can tell me it's not about money. It's all about making good movies. But the dude got a plane. That was his payment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'll try to
He
work
gets
that.
around, you know?
Oh yeah. I'll try to get that in my next.
There you go.
They might give me a personal little small drone I can
Yeah.
fly around or something, but
Instead of buymeacoffee.com, it will be buymeaplane.com.
Yeah.
there you go.
We'll get little miniature like Hot Wheels planes. Like, here's your Gulfstream. Looks a little model I put on my desk. So, all right. And then we got Richard Crenna as Colonel Trautman. This was the last Rambo film to star Richard Crenna as Colonel Sam Trautman. He passed away on January 17th, 2003, before the 4th film could be made. But that film, Rambo from 2008, was dedicated to his memory. He also later appeared in Hot Shots Part 2 in 1993, which is a parody of the Rambo series. Before taking the part, Crenna actually approached Sylvester Stallone for his opinion and asked for his blessing, something Stallone was more than happy to give. And I will tell you, I've seen Hot Shots Part 2 more times than I've seen Rambo 3. And when it got to that scene where Stallone's fighting at the beginning outside the monastery, and all I could see was the Hot Shots Part 2. And I know they don't do this in the movie, but in the Hot Shots, he puts the guy puts like the hot wax on his fist and then gets like the nails and screws. And then Charlie Sheen does the same thing, but it's like chocolate and then like sprinkles and like it's ice cream toppings or whatever. Man, so yeah, I love the Hot Shots movies. Those are hilarious.
Huh.
And the second one is definitely like, it parodies like all of the Rambo movies. So it's also one of my favorites, but it was cool to have Richard Crenna show up in that one and be like the big cameo for that. And then one of our favorites here, Kurtwood Smith as Robert Griggs. Of course, we covered him in our RoboCop and Dead Poet Society episodes. This was a fun fact I was not aware of. Kurtwood Smith played the role of the quote-unquote first choreographer in Stallone's film Staying Alive from 1983. So he returned to work with Stallone a second time, hot off the heels of his breakout performance in RoboCop. But yeah.
I'd love him as Red Foreman, though.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you can't. You can't talk about it without talking about being Red Foreman. So
I always liked the little thing that
quintessential
was
role.
going around. They had Red Foreman for president when they had the presidential election going along.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Vitamin Water Zero Sugar has great taste, zero BS, and obviously zero sugar. For those with zero room in their calendar, zero patience for slow walkers, those who get 0 hours of sleep on a Saturday night, have zero filter, zero given, and zero interest in grabbing a plain, boring water. Grab a delicious Vitamin Water Zero Sugar today.
For sure.
I really like, I don't remember him in Dead Poet Society.
He was
I'd
the
have to
father.
watch that.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was the dad who didn't want his son to be the actor.
Oh, yeah, Sean Leonard's dad.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I just rewatched RoboCop a couple weeks ago. I watch the director's cuts on Max. And so the director's cut just means like it has all the extra blood, you know, it's a little bit more gruesome than the original. Be forewarned, but it was cool. All right, that's it for cast, because everybody else was basically like a Israeli actor or, you know, European. So nobody that had any kind of filmography that we'd be aware of. So, but anybody in the cast stand out to you besides the three, the main three? Even Kurtwood Smith's more like a cameo. He's at the very beginning, and then he shows up halfway to let him know that Trautman's been kidnapped, and then you don't see him again at all. So
Yeah.
I can't think of
Anytime
anybody that stands
I
out from
see him,
that.
I just expect him to use that same line that he says that I can't say on air.
From that 70s show?
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
No, none of them really stood out other than the one guy that had that speech, which we can talk about later.
cool.
Say speech. But
Yes, speech.
It's more like a quote, dialogue,
Yes.
whatever you want to call it.
Yep. All right, well, let's talk about iconic scenes. If someone said to you Rambo 3, what's the first scene that pops into your head? I'll go with Chris this time.
I don't know why this is the first one that comes to mind, but he's already rescued Trautman, and they're on the way back, and he's fighting the big Russian guy on top of the hill or the mountain or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he does the spinning roundhouse kick and knocks him down the hole with the pins pulled from the grenades or something.
Right. Yeah.
That always stands out to me for some reason and comes to mind first.
Yeah, I can see that. What about you, JB? Iconic scene?
Iconic scene. Well, the one that stands out to me the most, like that I just will always remember, was the sheep game on the horsebacks.
Yeah.
Like where they're like doing the carrying the sheep from the thing, and then it leads right into that battle where the helicopter shows up.
Yeah.
And it's just, and then you see him but him and this other guys like on the horses, like running away from it, like that shot right there. I always remember that. But him carrying the sheep around that horse is just something I'm always remember. It's a weird looking game, but it's just like,
yeah.
So it's like football.
It is like football.
Very, very much like football. Yeah.
Why do you put it in the circle? Because there's a circle there.
Yeah.
Right.
So it is like football.
Right. So
do you play it with your foot?
Not really.
Not really.
So I had some trivia about the game on horseback. In reality, Sylvester Stallone has been riding horses since childhood and even competed in his first polo match at age 11. The game they're participating in is called Buzkashi and is played all across southern Central Asia. So there you go. It's called Buzkashi, Buzkashi, for those taking notes at home. For me, the iconic scene, it was funny because right before the scene happened, I was like, I couldn't remember, was it this movie or was it in First Blood Part 2? But the scene that I always remember from this movie, or just like a Rambo scene that I remember, is when he got shot and it went straight through his side, and he puts the gunpowder on both sides and then lights it. Seeing that as a kid was just like, oh my gosh, would that really work? Probably not, but it was really cool. It was so cool to see like the flame coming out of both, the front and the back. And then he just, from then on, he's just running and it doesn't hurt. So, but yeah, that's the scene that always sticks out to me. Like that's an essential or a quintessential Rambo scene for me.
See, now you got me wondering, will it work? I mean, it's gunpowder out of both sides. It catches fire on one, flames through the other. It cauterizes the wound.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see it. I don't want to be the one to test it out, though.
Well, I called my local physician. He's going to be a guest on the show. No, I'm just kidding. Let us know if it can really work. But if your physician listens to the show, let us know, and we would love to know. Could that really happen? I have a feeling it couldn't, and I'm sure MythBusters couldn't get the insurance to try that one. Hey, let me shoot you. Let me shoot you in the side and see if this works. So
you're gonna feel a pinch.
Yeah, this might hurt just a little bit. Hold still. We got to get it right in the right spot. Man. All right. What about favorite scenes? Any favorite scenes in this one? I'm struggling. I can tell already.
The thing is, I think the sheep game is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
but it's also really iconic too.
Mhm.
And I was gonna mention the gunpowder thing just because it's so freaking BA, you know what I
Right,
mean?
yeah.
Like it's just like it's just watching him do it. It's like kind of makes me cringe, but I'm like, man,
Yeah.
that's a dude right there.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
he's not screaming or anything, which I guess he can't because he would get caught. But I don't know. I think the cave fight where he's hunting all these guys down with the bow and arrow,
Yes.
just like
Yeah. The
that's
cave
just,
scene
it's
is pretty cool.
so dang good.
Yeah.
Like,
Pretty cool.
yeah.
What about you, Chris?
I always thought a little bit of a humorous scene, at least, was when he first gets there and he meets the guy and he's going to get his stuff from him and he's giving him the stuff he requested. And he's like, you sure you want to be here? You look like a tourist or something. He's like, I'm no tourist. He's looking at the stuff he's got and he's like looking at, I guess he's just some explosives there and stuff. And
Yeah.
then you get the blue light. He goes, well, what is this? He goes, the blue light.
blue.
He goes,
Yeah.
what does it do?
It turns blue.
Yeah,
That's
that was
it.
good.
Yeah, that was a good line. That was a good. Yeah, I don't really have I think you covered the cave scene was definitely one of my favorite scenes. I remember that. The scene of him taking down the chopper with his bomb-tipped arrow, explosive-tipped arrows. Which I did think it was funny, when the helicopter crashes and everybody's getting off the plane, it's so convenient how he grabs his pack that has his bow and arrow, which he has to put together later as he's putting it together. So, at least they didn't have a continuity problem there. But when he grabbed the bag, I was like, that's going to become important later, I have a feeling. And it did. But yeah.
It did seem like he had an awful lot of arrows.
Yes, I would agree with you.
That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Not quite as
Where did
many
those arrows come from?
Not
He
quite
picked
as
them up.
many
He went and
as,
picked them up off the bodies and put them back in his quiver.
I was say not quite as many as Legolas would have in his quiver.
Right,
but I mean,
right,
still,
Sure.
Yeah.
where is he getting all these magic arrows from?
Well, he's an elf. He can make those. He probably can create those in his mind or whatever. Elf magic.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah,
Can
but
we see-
even
Can we see Rambo as an elf?
he'd be a very angry elf.
He must be
He's
a
an angry
North,
elf.
One of those North Pole elves.
Call me
or
elf.
something.
One more
One more
time.
time referencing. Yeah. You're an angry little elf, aren't you? I wasn't gonna say. Oh, but yeah, just same with there's one gun battle I think where I'm like, they're just firing and firing and nobody's changing their magazines, nobody's running out of bullets at all. They're just continuing to fire over and over again. I'm like, yeah.
Take a page out of the A-Team's book.
There you go. Who needs logic?
I would be remiss though if I didn't mention there wasn't in all of the cheesy 80s action just for action stuff throughout this movie. There is that one scene where Masood, I mentioned it earlier, where he says when we fight, we're fighting to protect our land and we're fighting for our God. But if you think that this man is it's necessary to save this man, then we'll stand with you. This guy just met him. You know what I mean?
Right.
These guys just met, but the fact that they're standing with him to fight and go into this battle, where they're probably going to die. I don't know. That's a pretty cool scene for me too, and it kind of hits me a little bit, in more than anything else in this movie because it's very, very heavy action throughout it. So.
Yeah, I will say, even though it is a very action oriented, Stallone tends to to want to make some kind of a statement in his movies, and he was definitely making statements in this one. So yeah, I could see that.
Or when he tells him that when he was talking about going to save his commanding officer, and he was like, okay, well, if you get captured, we're going to deny any part in this, and the fact that we even know you exist. And he's like, yeah, sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about making a statement.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that before.
Yeah, right.
All right, well, let's jump into some trivia. I'm actually going to start with some deleted scenes that I found out about. There was extra dialogue that was filmed but cut from the scene where Griggs informs Rambo of Trautman's capture and then tells Rambo that he is really sorry. In the deleted footage, Griggs firmly tells Rambo about the impossibilities of sending a rescue force in after Rambo asks why he won't do anything about it. Some of the deleted dialogue, however, can be seen in the original trailer, which is pretty common. And also, the film's ending was longer. In the original cut, as Rambo and Trautman are driving away from the Freedom Fighters camp, as seen in the theatrical cut, Rambo decides not to go back home with Trautman to America. Rambo decides to stay with the freedom fighters, feeling that he has finally found somewhere he belongs. Trautman understands and says goodbye to Rambo, wishes him luck, and returns home to America alone. So a little bit longer scene. I don't know if I like one better than the other, but so there, I did find where one of the lost drafts of Rambo 3, it was an alternate story, they felt was a better fit for the franchise, but it would save the filmmakers from several issues that plagued the final movie. Speaking with Indie Film Hustle podcast, co-writer Sheldon Litch recalled how he and Stallone settled on the Soviet-Afghan War as a storyline. Stallone had wanted to move away from jungles after the second movie, while the conflict in Afghanistan was in the headlines at the time. Again, this made Russia the villain. However, Lettich recalled that Stallone was worried about the potential political hot potato of the concept, leading the writer to work on an alternate Rambo 3 premise. The other Rambo 3, which nearly co-starred Marlon Brando, it took the soldier to Siberia instead. The plot involved an American pilot being behind enemy lines, shot down, with Rambo sent in to rescue him from Russian forces and help him cross the Bering Strait. The co-writer admits the plot was largely inspired by Louis L'Amour's Last of the Breed, which involved a Native American pilot who has to use his hunting and survival skills to escape from the Soviets in Siberia. This book had the makings of not only a great action-adventure movie, but it calls to mind the original First Blood as well. Not only would the snowy setting have been a unique location for a Rambo film, but the premise itself would have also been more intimate and character-based than what we got in Rambo 3. So what do you think about that alternate version?
I'm still hung up on Marlon Brando as a co-star, man. I'm just thinking this dude is like,
yeah.
I mean, he's like a James Bond type, you know, like he's just so suave with everything. It's like, I could just, well, John.
That's all I could think. That's all I could think of a while ago when he said Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I think about that. I think about Superman, you know, Krypton, you know. But yeah, I think I read another article talking about Marlon Brando and like the part that went to Kurtwood Smith and the other draft that was kind of the same character, where like he was going to be the military guy that was in contact with Rambo about the person behind enemy lines. So I think I read that
he was going to make him an offer he couldn't refuse.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Brando made them an offer that they chose to refuse because he had too many notes on the script of how he wanted things to go, and they were like, "Nah, this isn't going to work." So I think him and Stallone probably would have butt heads on how they thought the film was going to go. That was not going to be a good
too much
combo.
In that, man.
Yeah. But
Too much ego.
I do kind of like the idea of it being in Siberia. I would have liked to have seen a Rambo in like a winter setting. I think that would have been a nice change of pace.
It definitely could have worked.
I mean, he did it in Rocky V. Why not go?
Yeah. It was the pre-cliffhanger, you know, where he was, you know, rock climbing in the snow in a t-shirt and not freezing to death or catching frostbite. I love cliffhanger. It's one of my favorites. Anyway, moving on. All right, so some trivia. The character Mossad, as JB mentioned, is a reference to Ahmad Shah Mossad, a real-life leader of the Afghan resistance against the Russian occupation, Minister of Defense of Afghanistan, after the Russian occupation ended, and later again a leader of the resistance, this time against the Taliban regime. So he was based on a real-life Afghan resistance fighter. Kind of speaking of that, one of the biggest controversies surrounding the movie was the idea of the character working with the Mujahideen to repel Soviet forces in Afghanistan. This took place during the Soviet-Afghan War, which raged for 10 years before finally seeing an end just 1 year after Rambo 3 came out. Following the end of the war, the Mujahideen descended into internecine warfare. I don't know what that means. I shouldn't use big words I don't understand in my notes. Anyway.
Words are hard.
Anyway, the ensuing power struggles I'll edit this out, gave rise to what our generation knows as the Taliban, a completely different group. Anyway, it was bad. Basically, the conflict that Rambo or that Stallone wanted to reference in the movie was by the time the movie came out was already starting to, like, Russia was starting to pull their forces out of Afghanistan. So what he thought was going to be like a hot topic in the world was kind of like the war's not even going on over there anymore. So that's one of the reasons why they felt like the movie didn't do as well, because it didn't seem as current as it was when they were actually filming it.
I bet Russia hates him. He's always picking on them, right? You know, I mean, it's always Russia.
Yeah, well, you know, they were our enemy then. Kind of still are, but
But I'm sure
that's for a different podcast.
they still don't like him, probably, though.
Yeah, wait till we talk about Red Dawn. When we get to Red Dawn, we'll really talk about.
Man, yeah.
Oops. Hold on, I gotta take us a break.
Russia. The Cold War did give us some great movies, though. I'll tell you that.
All right. Any other scenes or anything we want to talk about? That's kind of all the trivia I got. I'll have a few more I'll put in the show notes, but that was about it. There wasn't a lot, unfortunately. This one was not as big of a movie, so there's not as much, trivia behind the scenes stuff out there for this one, like the previous ones.
It was just pretty much action from beginning to end.
What's that?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I said it was just pretty much action from beginning to end.
Yeah,
really.
I mean, it's a straight up action movie. I mean, and I will say, like, I was gonna go back to like one of my favorite scenes. I do like the scene of Rambo at the beginning in the fighting with the sticks, like that, the stick fighting. And I think I read like the director filmed that himself. Like he used a handheld camera. He filmed that whole sequence himself. So that was all him. So, go ahead. Yeah. So, which is one of the most kind of like thrilling scenes. Like that combat scene is like one of the best action sequences in the movie, I would say.
Yeah. And I'm going to be honest, when I was watching that, it kind of gave me an answer to the age-old question, who would win in a fight, Rocky or Rambo? Because this dude is like fighting with sticks, which he's not used to fighting. He's fighting in this guy's game, and he's like getting the crap kicked out of him.
Right.
Okay, well, let's put some boxing gloves on him and fight out of his element. I don't know. I think Rocky could take him because he's out of his element.
Yeah.
So, anyway, but that's neither here nor there.
Mm-hmm. I can see that though.
I did, yeah. Like now, hand to hand, it's Rambo all day.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, your next little thing you could have would be a what if series, and that's your first what if episode right there. What if it was Rocky in that fight instead of Rambo, and you can put the whole thing on that.
Yeah, I don't know if Rocky would have been able to handle it. I think he would have gotten down pretty quick. So, like I said, out of his element.
It depends. Does he have Paulie in his corner?
Yeah. There's no rules though. Like Rocky wasn't really a street fighter. He was a boxer. So there's rules and things that he would follow. So I don't know. Yeah, good question though.
He was a brawler though.
Yeah,
like, that was what they said throughout the movie. He was a brawling type fighter. So like,
True.
I think he could throw down.
Yeah. I'm about to rewatch the Rocky series, so I'm a little,
yes.
I'm a little out of my.
Can't wait.
Yep, it's coming.
I did want to mention the one line, because you were talking about funny lines earlier, was when, what's his name? Musa said to him, like when he first met him, he says, "You look like you haven't seen much war." It's like, okay, all right.
I beg to differ.
Right.
I've seen 2 movies already.
Yeah. And in one of the movies, we didn't see him in war. We just saw some flashbacks.
We just saw like the aftermath. So
I think
sure
war has seen too much of him.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's hop into box office. So Rambo 3 debuted in American theaters on Wednesday, May 25th, 1988, just ahead of the Memorial Day weekend. It had some tough competition with other new releases, Willow and Crocodile Dundee 2. They took the number 1 and 2 spot, respectively, leaving Rambo 3 at number 3. So Rambo 3 debuted at number 3. Overall, the film grossed $53.7 million in the United States and Canada, $135.3 million overseas, giving Rambo 3 a box office total of $189 million. The film was considered to have underperformed in comparison to the previous film in the series, which grossed nearly 3 times as much domestically. So it made money, but it wasn't a blockbuster like the last one, which is understandable. Wasn't as good. All right.
It's kind of funny with that because they always say that the sequel never does better than the original, right? But the sequel to First Blood, Rambo First Blood Part 2, made a lot of money. So they figured, hey, we just made this with this. Let's go with number 3 and see what we can do. And then they took big, like 2 steps back. Not quite the same.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of, it falls in that thing of like, the original was good. Did it need a sequel? No. But because they knew it could make money, they did it. And so I can't really say that Rambo First Blood Part 2, and we talked about this on our previous episodes about the movies. I don't think it's better than First Blood, but it's more fun.
Right.
Like it's a more enjoyable watch, but First Blood is by far the better movie as far as like
it's definitely the better movie. Part 2 just has more action, which makes it more fun to watch.
It took a different turn. It took a different tone. So, but then 3 kind of wanted to like do the same thing but bigger. And I think like at the time it had the most kills. Like it broke the record for the most on-screen kills in a movie. So, which I think Rambo First Blood Part 2 had held the title until this one came out. So,
well, what did 4 do? Did 4 beat the rest of them?
Gosh, I mean, 4 was like super violent.
4 probably had the most gory kills at the time for Rambo.
He definitely got more into like the CGI kills because the blood, like those and that one and the Expendable movies, which I like the first 2 Expendable movies. Like those are like seriously CGI kills, but
I mean, I like the third Expendable movie because Mel Gibson is one of the best villains I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like he's so dang good.
The third one is still good. It's not as good as the first 2. The first one is still the best, but the fourth one was terrible. It was just hard to watch.
I can't get over how good Mel Gibson was as a villain though. Like it was so ridiculous.
Yeah, and then you got Wesley Snipes coming in the third one too, adding his comedy quips. So yeah. Now you may want to go back and watch the Expendable movies. Okay, moving on. Manly Movies. Go check it out. All right, it's time to take a look at how well this 80s flick holds up today. The all-new rewatchability nostalgia meter is our way of measuring how enjoyable a movie is for repeat viewings, along with the waves of nostalgia it brings. Here's how it works. It's a 1 to 10 scale. Any number between 1 and 10 will do, but here are a few parameters to help you decide. At the bottom of the meter is a number 1. Basically says, I saw it once, and I don't ever want to see it again. Right in the middle is the number 5, a good rewatch every couple of years. And the highly coveted top of the meter at a 10 is highly rewatchable and full of nostalgia. JB, I'll start with you. Where does Rambo 3 rank for you on your rewatchability and nostalgia meter?
I'm gonna follow just like with Karate Kid Part 3. Like would put it at like a 4 or 5. But because the first 2 are so rewatchable and I'm such a completionist and there's 5 of them. So it's like, I can't watch 4 and 5 without watching 3. So it's like the first 2 are so dang good. And so I'm just like, I mean, I'm going to watch it every time that I watch 1 and 2. I'm going to watch the whole thing. So I'd probably say about maybe a 6, probably. It's up there a little bit higher.
Yeah. I can dig that. What about you, Chris?
I'm a sucker for a good 80s action flick with just blowing things up and shooting guns nonstop and little one-liners. And so anything Stallone and Schwarzenegger, I guess, is what it comes down to. So that being said, being such a sucker for these things, I'm going to throw an 8 on it because I'll always watch it. I will always watch it. I won't pass it up. There may be 3 or 4 good movies on TV that I want to watch, and if that's one of them, I'll always I'll go to it first.
Gotcha.
So,
yep. All right. Good deal. Yeah, I'm kind of with JB on this one. We talked about this on Karate Kid. If it was by itself a standalone movie, it's like a 3 for me. Like there's not much that makes me really want to go back and watch it over and over again. And I don't have a lot of nostalgia for it because, like I said, I don't really remember seeing it in the theater. I think I saw it on video, but I didn't watch it a whole lot as a kid. But because it's part of a franchise, if I'm going to watch 1 and 2, and if I want to watch 4 and 5, then I'm going to have to watch 3 with it. So as as part of the franchise, I'm going to give it a little bit higher than JB. I'm going to go 6.5. I can't quite give it a 7, but I will give it a 6.5. So that's where it lands for me. All right, well, let us know where you think Rambo 3 should rank on the Rewatchability Nostalgia Meter. You can send us an email at info@80sflickflashback.com, or you can let us know on social media. You can leave a comment right here on YouTube if you're watching the podcast here. Well, Chris, JB, thank you guys so much for being a part of this episode. I think we've given Rambo 3 its due, but let's see, JB, no new episodes, the Manly Movies. We talked about it last time, so go back and listen to some previous episodes. He's still got some good ones out there if you haven't listened to them yet. So, Chris, what you got coming up on Retro Life for You podcast?
Coming up, well, current episode this week is actually the one you were on with me
Right.
for Moving Violations.
That was a lot of fun.
That was very fun. Next week, we've got Transformers, the movie that my friend Marty was on with me. And then after that, which might be about the time this airs, I don't know when you're going to put this up, but we have Tom Cook. He was a cartoon director, animator, and things from the 80s. So he was the one who did all of Masters of the Universe, He-Man, She-Ra, the movies that they did. He was a part of like the not Clash. Is one of the Challenge of the Super Friends and Thundar the Barbarian, Brave Star, Black Star, Filmation cartoons a lot. He did some Hanna-Barbera too. So he was all around. Look him up, Tom Cook. He's a pretty good guy. Did a lot of stuff with the cartoons that we grew up on watching. So that was a very fun episode to do. He explained everything in detail, how things were done back then, and his opinion on how it compares to what cartooning's done today with all the digital stuff and everything. So it was fun.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, just like Kristen did. Be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can jump online and visit the website, 80sflickflashback.com, or our TeePublic store for some awesome 80s Flick Flashback merch and original designs. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Tim Williams for the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. In ancient days, the Afghan king was asked to send 500 warriors into battle. He said only 5, his greatest 5, and they won. He said, "It's better to send 5 lions than 500 sheep."